hear me, let me know. We're not blessed with height. Some of us are shrinking. Thank you. Okay. Good morning. I'm Betty Sanfelippo, and I'm joined by Erin Steward. We're happy to be here today to discuss Holy Land healing.
Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you very much. This book began as a dream by Dr. Fuller McBride. He told a lot of stories, and his kids said, "Why don't you write those down, Dad?" So this book contains a collection of stories contributed by initially a few of Dr. McBride's fellow physicians, but ultimately expanded to include more physicians and many of the Sisters of St. Agnes. Once compiled, the search began for a name, and Dr. McBride's son suggested Holy Land Healing. It's a wonderful name, and I think it explains a little bit about what was actually happening in the 80s, but it is subtitled Practicing Medicine in Rural Wisconsin, Reflections and Lessons from a Poignant Era. As you read this book, one of the underlying themes is the possibly regretful loss of a bygone time, when there was less technology, more time to get to know your patients, and the underlying fact that in those days, healing was more related to the doctor-patient relationship and less to the more recent advances, which both the patients and the doctors now have come to rely on. As Dr. McBride had never written a book before, nor did he have any idea how to get one into a substantive form, he asked Dr. Treffert, who had written books, to help. The decision was made to use technology to write the book rather than to go through a conventional publisher. Part of that decision was to avoid managing an inventory. Dr. McBride and Dr. Treffert are mature, and and they didn't want to be bothered with that. So once this was decided, there was a glaring hurdle. Dr. McBride had no experience nor expertise in the area of computer books. Fortunately, he knew of a recent graduate of Luther College, Erin Steward, who was computer savvy and willing to assist. At the time of her involvement, which preceded mine, there was a sketchy framework. I'll turn the presentation over to Erin now so she can give you an idea of the guide through the early parts of Holy Land Healing.
So, as Dr. Sanfelippo has said, I came into the project when it was very much just still in the early stages. My initial involvement was actually on behalf of my father. Dr. McBride had wanted him, he's a pediatrician, to contribute something to the book, and he was a bit reticent to do so. He would not say that technology is his best friend, and he also just wanted to make sure that after nearly 4 decades of practicing medicine and the rich variety of experiences and memories that he had, that he was saying everything he wanted to say in the best way possible. So we decided that we were just going to have some conversations. I audio recorded them, and then I transcribed them and worked with him to take it more from the stream of consciousness thoughts to something that everybody could easily have access to and read. So I turned this into Dr. McBride, and I thought that that was going to be the end of it. But imagine my surprise when I got a phone call from him, and he asked me if I would like to be part of the team that was going to end up assembling this book. I said yes, I'd love to go be up for the challenge, and the rest is history. When I first met with Dr. McBride, it was basically his brainchild at this point, and I wanted to know what he envisioned for a format of this book. Was it going to be hardcover, paperback? Was it going to have a lot of contributions or just a few? How were we going to organize it? Would it be by contributor's last name, or would we organize it by their specialties? We had a lot of options and a lot of questions. And the more we talked about it, the more we realized we didn't have any answers until we had all of the contributions in place. But something that we definitely wanted to make sure that we were still in dialogue about was the idea of to whom are we going to dedicate this book. The first person who came to mind, and very much rightfully so, was Dr. Ewald Posset, and if you look in the book you will see a dedication to him. But as sometimes goes, I was driving to the Eden post office and had an idea occur to me, and that idea was, is there room for a second dedication? I thought that it could potentially be very fitting to also include a dedication to the Congregation of Sisters of St. Agnes. I don't think it's much of a secret that healing ministry in Fond du Lac would not have the form that it has today without their hard work and many years of contribution. So I called up Dr. McBride, and he liked the idea so much that he actually took it one step further, and he said, what if we asked the sister nurses if they would like to contribute? Would they be interested? And we definitely could not have imagined how resoundingly they wanted to participate and were eager to share their experiences. What was really humbling, well, the whole project was humbling for me, but I think that particularly so for me working with the sister nurses. In large part because contributions were trickling in from doctors, but they were all typed, already preset, somebody had already done them, taken care of them, and I received letters from the sister nurses, many of which were actually handwritten. So the first part of the adventure for me was typing up what was written. And I didn't know any of them. And I think that was perhaps the most beautiful gift of all for me, was that these people are entrusting me with their precious words. They want me to get it right, and I'm coming to learn about them, not only through the words on the page, but also the voice that comes through their words. So as the editor-in-chief of this collection of stories, I wanted to make sure that my main goal was to obviously make it as grammatically pleasing or as friendly to everybody who wanted to read it, but I never wanted to make a single decision that was going to jeopardize the unique storytelling voice that came through from each individual. So once I had finished typing everything up, and then I proofread these contributions, I asked Dr. Sanfelippo to help me with that. She is possessed of an eagle eye and an equal love of the English language. And so then it was time to transfer everything into one big document. But we could not do that without pictures, and I will let Dr. Sanfelippo explain that, as that's her domain.
I'm not a photographer, but I play one on TV. Dr. McBride had originally envisioned that the contributors would all get together and have a group photograph. Well, at that point, there were only 6 to 8, and as the group got bigger, obviously he didn't think that was going to work. So he changed his request to a head and shoulders candid photo contributed by the contributors. It was about at that time when I entertained the idea that wouldn't it be interesting if we put pictures of these same doctors back when they were telling their stories, and placing it in the book alongside the current pictures. I received tremendous cooperation from Sue Stuller in the medical staff office at St. Agnes with the older photographs. She went into the archives and got some appropriate ones. But the physician contributors were not as compliant with the request. So, you know, all you need is a little assertiveness. So I took my little cell phone and stalked these gentlemen. Literally. You will see a picture of Dr. Malat in his sports car exiting his driveway. You will see a picture of Dr. Masick in his place on the lake where he was busy doing brush. I went to Dr. Mickelson's office between appointments and got all these kinds of things. We also enlisted the help of some wives because I couldn't get to everybody. But we had no easy way to acquire archive photos of the sister contributors. And in fact, forgive the going off book and the profiling, but Dr. McBride said, they all look the same anyway back then. So, well, think about it. How much of their face showed? You know, they were all with the little hats and everything. So, but we were not going to let them go without a current picture. But, you know, where are these people? So I enlisted the help of Sister Ann Jude and Sister Rhea Emmer, who gave me their addresses. And I went to the mother house at lunchtime to get pictures of all of those that were eating lunch. But I went to the residences of other nuns. Not every nun in this community lives in the mother house. So many of them live in private homes, and I went and visited them at those places, once again, staying in driveways, etc. I did make appointments for many, many, but sometimes I just kind of got there. But some of these sisters are still in active ministry elsewhere, but they come back to the mother house for conferences. And so that's where I got some pictures of the ones from Milwaukee and Chicago. The sister that's in Arizona sent her own picture, but the rest of them I took with my little camera. I continue to be awed by their initiative and their total lack of reticence when it comes to implementing programs that heretofore had not been existing. When you read the book, One of them talked about, we didn't have any occupational therapists, so I just went out and became one. I think the other poignant part of this book is that particular sister, just in the time since the book was envisioned, can no longer tell that story. She's had to move from the mother house to Nazareth Court, but at the time when she was asked, she could still do this. And I think that's one of the other things that as I watch the book, there are people that we couldn't ask for memories because they aren't with us any longer. But many of them are mentioned by the people who still do. So it was a wonderful throwback to that kind of time. Once we had the stories and the pictures, it was finally time to go to press, which wasn't as easy as it sounded. So we obviously still had Erin, bless her heart.
So, thanks to Dr. Sanfelippo's time and, shall we say, great personal investment, we added the pictures, and we had decided on using a Google document to create our big document. I don't know if any of you have had experience with this, but I did a lot in college with this, and I found that it was a very versatile way for many people to collaborate on a single document without having to all be in the same physical space. And this came very much in handy, as by this point summer had drawn to a close and fall was well underway, which meant that I was back off to France for my second year of teaching English. So it was imperative to have a way that was both efficient and effective for us to keep in contact and keep this ball rolling. Drs. Steward, McBride, and Sanfelippo had given me the go-ahead to upload our final document to our self-publishing agency of choice, CreateSpace, and I was stoked. I could almost see the finish line, I could taste the success, and it wasn't to be that way. Because that came crashing down rather abruptly when I found out that CreateSpace was closing, and that all new books would now be needed to be put on Amazon.com via Kindle Direct Publishing, which I'll just call KDP. This was definitely unexpected and full of uncertainty for me. I had devoted a fair amount of time to learning how to do everything on CreateSpace, and now I couldn't use any of that knowledge. But, as with anything in life, success does not come without a fair degree of flexibility and adaptability, so I put my mind to it and learned how to reformat the book in order to fit the specifications of Amazon KDP. That said, we were still running into three large problems. Our first problem, for reasons still unknown to me, was that formatting was not the same for everyone viewing the Google document. I still don't know why, but the biggest issue with this was that our table of contents pages were not lining up with the starting page for every contributor's entry. That's a big problem. And the minute that I thought I fixed the problem, somebody would write me an email saying that I just made it worse. So, I was definitely not doing something right there. Secondly, Amazon KDP is relatively new, and as such, they had a very limited number of templates that you could use to design your cover. We all know how important it is when having a cover that can really be something that helps someone to make the decision to open a book or not. So we did not want to have to sacrifice on this cover, but we didn't know what else to do because we didn't see any way around making what we wanted to make. And our third problem was that the pictures were printing out strangely. Some people's photos looked super flattering, and then yet others would look excellent on the document and printed out be grossly distorted. So that was not the way we wanted things to go either, and no matter what I did, I could not get everything to jive. So I felt very much in over my head and very concerned about whether or not I was going to be able to deliver on this book. And enter Dave Horning and Bonnie Lapine with the Graphic Center. They so graciously and so patiently answered all of my questions. Oh my goodness, they helped me to learn how to work within the confines of Amazon KDP, and they created the bold and beautiful cover that you will see when you look at the book. So, I'm so glad that we did not have to compromise on that. They were on board with our vision at 100%, and we as a team, and I personally, cannot thank them enough for everything that they did and for all the help that they gave me. So, at long last, it was finally time to give it another go, as our guardian angels had helped fix all of these problems. We ordered a proof book from Amazon. You can kind of take a look at it and see what it looks like before sending it out to the masses. And we waited with bated breath and were absolutely elated when we found that everything was as it finally should be. Truth be told, I didn't get to see the book. I was relying on the other 3 people because I was still in France, so I was waiting for them to approve it. But they gave me confirmation, and then I just went on Amazon.com, I entered in the pricing details, and I went past the point of no return, which is making the book live for everyone to purchase it. So as for some concluding thoughts on my end, in my role that vastly changed from what I had originally envisioned, it was at times a labor of love to get through the unexpected challenges that popped up and to help see this through to final publication. But I'm so delighted that it came to pass in a way that's pleasing to the contributors, that honors what they have had to say, and so far to all the readers from what the feedback is that we've gotten. And I'm really honored to have been asked to help coalesce all these stories and these memories and these voices for our children and our children's children that will speak to the healing ministry not only of our generation, but the generations that have come before ours.
Writing a book in the electronic format does not come without a price, however. From the beginning, it was decided that any profits would be directed to the Treffert Center. No contributor or author or collaborator receives any money. But all of this, as she was talking about with KDP, they take a big chunk out of it. The amount of the $30 book that actually goes to the Treffert Center is $7.90. It's still more than nothing, and we're very happy to be able to do it. It is only available through Amazon, which is a bit of a problem because I have an Amazon account because I wanted a used record CD for a friend of mine, and that was where I happened to get it. But that was not without some angst. And many people of my generation, some of whom are here, have some problems with that. I've told them to ask their grandchildren, maybe they can get the book for them that way, but that's been a little bit of a problem. I have not had any problem with Amazon, though, getting the book, though. Within 3 to 5 days, it's in my mailbox. So that part is not an issue. It's just, I think it's the technology to get there that scares a few people. But I did bring a few books with me here today, but we were going to have, it was a labor of love, as Erin said, and Dr. McBride is very pleased, and we're happy to be able to give this gift to him too as well.